Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video on the Microsoft Power Platform, part of Microsoft 365. And this is video 2 in a series where we've been looking at an application. In the last one, we looked at SQL Server. Today is going to be a little more in depth because we're going to do it as SharePoint. I'm going to take a little more time to get rid of delegation errors and so forth. So before we get started, I want to let you know I am available for development, consulting, or training, project management. So come to my site, platcanyon.com, if you need any of those or if you just want to touch base. So let's start with our data. So you might remember if you looked at the first one, we've got an application where we've got 4 tables: instructor, attendee, course, and then a course sign-up table. And in the first video, we did this in SQL Server, and we'll be leading up to getting into a Dataverse model-driven one. And this app is really, you can think of it as kind of an old school if somebody like emailed assignments, or for somebody to set up, everything except for the attendee sign up, because I'll follow this video with kind of a more specialized app just for employees to sign up, because they don't really need the course and the instructor and all that kind of spot. But in any event, it's a good example of trying to how to use some of the new modern controls. And what I want to do in this one is really take advantage of lookup columns, because that's the closest thing in SharePoint that we have to relationships between tables. So let's start with the instructor table. I'll just show you quickly how they're set up. So I've got kind of the standard same kind of things that I was doing in the other one, last name, first name, and so forth to get that set up. So it's just standard type of SharePoint list. And then our next one is the course. And the big thing there is our instructor is a lookup column. So let's go look at that for just a second. So that's the main interesting part. And it gets really important when you get to Power Apps here is whatever we select for the column. So what I've done is, sorry, I should back up. I picked when I set it up that it was going to the instructor list. And then I get to pick which is the primary column. And so that it's just like we do in a database, I use the auto number, the ID for it. But that's the only one I can search on and so forth without any kind of delegation errors. And which is fine, because I'm going to look up the rest of this data, last name, first name. So that's why I'm not even bothering to put it into the list. The other thing we really got to watch is enforce relationship behavior. What we want to do is when we delete a course, we don't want to delete the instructor as well. And so that's why we have the restrict delete. And we'll see some implications of that when we come in. Like we won't be able to delete a course at all until we delete the instructor. And so we'll go into that. But that's the safest one and works pretty well. Make that a little bit wider. All right, and then let's go over to, that's the course. The attendee is pretty standard as well. So I just called everything attendee last name. And then, our course sign up is kind of where we're getting at the end, and I've got 2 lookup columns to the course and to the attendee, and those are both numeric, and we're linking to the ID column. So let me flip over to Power BI for a minute just so we can visualize it a little bit. I should mention, if you connect to this in Power BI, it will not pick up all the relationships for you. You do have to put them in. So you literally just like drag between ID and course ID, but let me just put one of them in there so that we can see how it looks. So if I scroll over, you see I've got the course ID column, and then it links up to the ID column of our course table. And since it did from the top one, it's many to 1. So we'll later on in this set of videos, we'll come in and do some rosters and so forth inside of Power BI. All right, so let's get started. Unlike the last video, I'm going to go ahead and just build this whole thing live. So it'll take a little bit of time, but hopefully then I won't skip over any steps. So I'm going to go over, we've got a solution, a Dataverse enabled solution, even though we don't need the Dataverse part here. And you'll see I've already got a couple apps here. I'm going to build, I've already done it so I can make sure I get it right. So I'm going to do a brand new one though. So I'm going to say a new Canvas app, and I'll call this video SharePoint training course sign up. That's kind of a long name, but and I'm going to make it a canvas. And so first thing I'm going to do, well, actually second thing, let's come in. I'm going to want this so that I can distinguish it from our other, the SQL Server one. I'm going to make this the green theme. So the first thing I'm going to do is go use the new themes and set that to green. And then come over here at our tree view. I'm going to just call this the menu screen. And rather than start from a new template, I'm just going to go ahead and do the new header. I'm going to be using the default or the new modern controls. So it picks up the menu screen. I'm just going to grab a logo. It's kind of fun. When I was coming over here, look at, we had something like these cats and stuff. So I'm just going to grab that just to make it a little bit interesting. And I'll just let it pick up the name of the screen. We'll do some more with the header in a minute. So I'm going to insert the new buttons. And notice when I did that, see how it picked up the green. That was that. That was the from the theme and stuff. So I'm just going to go through this and go to the different buttons that I want. So in the end, I'm going to have 4 screens. Oops, get rid of that. And I'm going to call this instructors. And I'll just copy and paste that. And we'll call this one courses. I'll grab both of those. And on my apps, I like to rename those. See if I can get it about right. But I'm not going to take the time here for you to watch me to do that. So I'll call this attendees. And I'll do this one as signups. So our first 4 screens are going to be fairly similar. And then the rest will, the last one will be a little more involved. So we'll spend like half the video on the last one there. So let's go through and do a new screen. And I'm going to grab this table and form view. And I'll rename that because it picks up the name as well. So we'll call this instructor's screen. I'm going to go to the header, turn off the logo. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to go in here. I want to be able to go to the back button. So I'm just going to search for back. I found this classic one works better. So I'm going to do that, but it gets stuck off the time. I talked about this in the other video. So we got to go mess with the widths for a minute. So I'm going to change this layout min width. Instead of making it parent.width, I'm going to make it app min screen width. And then I'm also going to change the actual width. Let me see what this was called first. It was called icon 1. Okay, I want to get the name. So we'll go to the width. I'll just type it in here. And I'll say parent width minus icon 1 dot width. There we go. And then what I need to do is move this, so I reorder it to the start, so it puts it in the right spot. And then what I want to do is, well, since I'm on select, I might as well do it here. I'm going to navigate, menu screen, and I want to change the color. And it's got some primary foreground. There we go, makes it nice and white. And I'll put this, I'll make it 50 rather than 64, so this doesn't quite take up so much space. Okay, and like I said, eventually this will pick up the list. All right, so what we want to do now is let's go ahead and set up our data. So I'm going to grab SharePoint, and it should have my examples where I just was. There we go, attendee, course sign up, and instructor. Now I can go over to my table and go ahead and set up my items. So rather than be table, I'll start this with instructor. But I actually want to do a little bit more. You might remember in the other video I used search, but search isn't delegable, which means that it will only go up to the max number, either 500 or the biggest I can make it is 2,000. So I don't really like any kind of delegation problems in here. So I'm going to build this whole thing that way so I can filter, and then I can do certain types of ones. So the one thing I can do is starts with. So I'm just going to use that, and I can pick the thing. I'm going to say last name, and then I have search input 1 dot value, and that's that search like that. So notice I don't have any kind of delegation problem, and I can maybe go up to this search thing, and it's got a search text where, yeah, there we go. I'll say search starting, I'll just say by last name. So if I run this, if I go Mullins and tab out, then it goes out. And I also have, if I go Rucker, goes to that one. So not quite as good a search functionality, but it's not too bad. So let's go in here. It picked up my fields already, but the top 3 is what will come up. So I'm going to move that last name up, and then first name, and then I'll put email there instead of title. There we go. And then let's get rid of, see what other kind of errors I have already. Yeah, the current item is a variable. That'll get picked up once I click on it, so we don't need to worry about that yet. So let's go over to our form now. I should bring that properties back. And what we want to do here is pick up the data source, and we want that to also be instructor. And then we can do our fields. And it's important that we put these in the right order, because otherwise when we move them around, the tab order in the current version of the control doesn't pick it up. So I'm going to go first name, last name, email, title, phone. And then I like to put the ID in there just so we can be sure everything's working out okay. You know, we can get that. Let's see. Not showing up yet. Oh, there it was. Just had to wait for it for a second. And let's just try this real quick before we do anything else. So we can go ahead and play. So we can first just make sure. So let's go ahead and see if we can edit. And I'll put, 22255, whatever. There we go. It says it worked. Let's go over and look at the instructor. There it was. There's that new phone number. They got 4 numbers inside there. So that shows us this is working. But we'd like to do a little bit more on this screen is we'd like to go ahead and show which courses it goes with. So that's kind of interesting. So what we want to do is we got to look, there's containers inside of containers and all this. So we got to kind of play with it a little bit. So there's the right, and then we have a delete, which by the way, while we're in there, let's fix this delete because we have a confirm button in here. And we're going to copy and paste this table. So I don't like to take this table. I just want to put in the data source. It has to do with deleting and stuff. So everywhere we see table, you can just put this. Like that. So while we're in there, we take care of that. And then we have the right container inside. So we've got that's the top container, and then we've got main container. But what we want to do is put another container inside there. So we select this here, and we'll just start typing in container. And I want a vertical container. There we go. And we'll adjust the height. Actually, we can do a little bit of it now because we don't need this to be quite so big. And it has these fill portions. And so I'll just make this like 0.8. And notice how I got rid of the scroll bar. So that works out reasonably well. And then what I need inside here is I need a text. And we're just going to call that associated courses. And I'll just make that bold real quick. And I'll change the width. It's like 200. There we go. And then what else I need is another table to show the courses itself. So make sure I have that container set up, and I'll put table, the one that's in preview, and I'm going to link that one up to course. So it already kind of picked up our columns and stuff, but I'm going to make it fill the whole space. Put the flexible height on there so it'll fill the whole height as well. But we don't want to show all courses. What we want to do is just show the ones that they've selected. So we'll come in here and we'll filter. And this is where these lookup columns are a little bit weird, so we just have to deal with it. So I say instructor ID, because remember that was my lookup column. But normally if we were in SQL, we would just, that'd be a number, but it isn't. We've got ID and value, and they end up both being the same. But what's weird is that value it thinks is this text, but we want to use that because that's the one that's doesn't have the delegation problem. So we want to say ID value, and then what do we set it to? Well, what we want to do is see as we're changing who that is. So we could go in and we could use current item, but to be consistent with the rest, I actually want to go in and use the card value. So I come in over here. So we gotta, takes us a second because we gotta come in and we gotta find that form. There we go. So you see it's called data card value 6. And I can't really rename that without unlocking the control, which we don't really want to do unless we have to. So we just kind of remember data card value 6 dot value. So in this case, we're okay because both of those are effectively text values. So it ends up working fine. So you can see I got some information there, but let's go ahead and edit those fields because it gave me a little bit more than what I want here. So I basically don't want these last two. In this case, I don't need the instructor ID. So now let me make that a little bit bigger. So as we come in and pick it, let me get rid of this thing. So if I go Sean Mullins is part of Guitar 101 and Darius Rucker is the other one. Now, we need to, not quite sure. I guess I have to I can hold the Alt key down and make them wider. I'm not quite sure why it didn't pick up all of them, but anyway, you get the idea. See if I can. There. Give me a little more space. Maybe I did a little too much. All right, so that's effectively our first screen. So let's go ahead and go back to the menu. Oops. Collapse all that. Go back to the menu. So our first one of this, our on select is navigate, instructors. Oops. Not sure what I'm doing there. Loosen up behind the keyboard. There we go. We can go ahead and save. And change some things. We could add new person and so forth. And go back. So far so good. It looks like our menu, our thing didn't go to the top though for whatever reason. There we go. All right. So let's go to our next one. And for that, the quickest way is going to be able to just duplicate this screen. There we go. It's a little bit slow. All right, I paused it for a second while I did it, but now you see it's done. So let's rename this one. Call it courses screen. We don't need to do anything with the header. So we just kind of go through same thing we had before. So we're going to filter course. And I'm going to change this to the course name. And let's see what the, oh yeah, it already changed my input. So that's good. But let's look at the field. See, it kind of these kind of messed up. So once I've copied them, I got to remove all these. Because it still has a, remembering the old ones that were in there. And then I can add these that we want. So we've got course name. Then I want location. And I'll put capacity next. And then doesn't really matter. The rest of these, I'll just put them on. And ID. There we go. So we got a couple of those. Notice, by the way, we're going to get to this in a minute. I'd really like to say capacity colon and then the number, but I don't have any way to do that right now. So that you'll see in the final screen that we do, we're going to move to a gallery just for that reason. But here it's okay, so we won't mess with it a whole lot. And then it's figured out that I've got the wrong table in here now, so everywhere it says instructor, I just need to say course. So let me copy that. This is just in our deletion. There we go. Oops, not sure what I was doing there. All right. And then this one, current item, it'll figure that out after we come in here. So let's go over to our form. This one's going to be course. And it'll ask me if I want to replace the cards, which I do want to do. And you'll see I'm getting an error on this table because I was using that card, but that's okay. All right, so we've got course name and so forth in here. And we pretty much leave this alone, but I do want to move some stuff around, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. So let's look at these columns. And the main thing I want to do is I want to make this one shorter. So I want this to be associated instructor, and it'll only be one. So I need that to be quite a bit less. So let's go in here and make it like 0.3. There we go. Give me a little more space for the other one here. So then we're going to need to do some work on this, but let's do a couple things. So first we go into the fields. So notice course description, I want that to be multi-line text. So that's pretty much the only one I need to do from this view. That makes that a little bit bigger. And then what I want to do is my instructor, I don't want to type in the number. I need to pick from the instructor's table. So all we got to go there is click on the card, go to the advanced, and we need to unlock it. And that allows us to make a couple things. So first thing, we don't want that to be display name. We just want this to be instructor instead of instructor ID. Like that. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead, we click on the card, and we want a drop down instead of this. And what we want to do for our drop down is going to be instructor, so we can replace columns. But one thing we can only do is get just one of the elements, so we'll put the last name in there. So let's see if I can get to the spot in here so I can find the find the card here. Because what I like to do is just grab some of the properties so I can position it exactly the same. So notice it's 24, 36, 411, 32. So we can go under here. So I'll rename this, by the way. I'm going to rename that to call it instructor canvas. And let me go back to that again because it was 2436. Let's do that first. think this was 411 in the 32. So let's go double check. There we go. So that gives us the right spot. Now we can go ahead and delete this. And we're going to get some errors, but we can fix that. So we'll come in here. This one, so the update, actually let's do that one second. Well, see if I can find this one first, because that's the easier one. Which I guess they're both. There we go. Let's fix that one first. So we say instructor so this is just putting where the error thing goes. So we just put the right name of the control. But the other one is much more difficult. So let me go look at my notes, make sure we have it correct on there. So first thing is to note it's if you can look at lots of videos on the oops, sorry, get the right spot, on how to deal with the lookup columns. So that's what we have to do first. So let's get this. This is the update for the card. So what we want to do is we need to give it an actual correct set of values. So it's basically like an array. So we have to give it the ID, which is that canvas dot selected dot ID, because that's the actual primary key of the instructor that we want. And we also need to give it the value, and the value is the same thing. Like that. And way you can tell if it's working or not is just come in and see if it updates the list and shows inside here. So that's how we want to do the update. So let's go look at the canvas as well. So the items, as we said, is the instructor, but the main thing we want to pick is the default selected items. So what we have in the parent record is the ID, so we got to find the actual record that we need. So very similar to how we've been doing some of the other stuff. So we go default selected items, and we look up. So rather than filter, we're going to look up, looking up instructor, and then we say ID equals, and that's the column from the instructor table. And then we're going to get current item dot instructor ID, that's our lookup column, dot value. And then you'll notice when we get the error, if I could see it, it's going to, whoops, where'd it go? Yeah, can't be compared number and text. And the reason is because this value, it thinks it's text. So all we had to do is just say the value function, which turns it into a number. And then works like that. We can also, in this case, use instructor ID.id, but I just want to all the way across just use value and not use .id there. So let's try it out. Let's see. Let's look at our errors. Let's make sure we don't have any. Looks like we had a few more. Oh, that's coming down from below, so we won't worry about that yet. So let's see if we can get this part to do it. Oh, you can see it pulled the title, so it actually worked, but it didn't. It's showing the person's title, so let's fix that before we test it. So we got to go. Let's close that. Go back to the properties, and we have to come in here and see our titles first. So it really doesn't matter what else we put because it only shows one. But I'll do last name, then first name, then title. You can see now it changed to Mullins. Change over here to Rucker. And then if I go edit, then notice how I get the list of there. So that's what I want it to happen. So far so good. So let's go fix this over here. So we want to filter, but we don't want to filter course now. We want to filter instructor. And this actually has the advantage of showing all the data. So if we happen to have 2 Mullins, it would tell us which one to do. So we want to say instructor, and then we want to say instructor ID value. And actually this is instructor ID in this case. We want the ID of the instructor to be, and we want this to be instructor canvas dot selected dot ID. And then we have to go in here and mess with the fields again. So it picked up title, but it got all the rest of these. So just like we had to do before, we'll just get rid of all these. And we'll just remove it so that we can add them all at once. So what we want to do is go, where's the F's? All right, first name, then last name, title, email, then phone. There we go. Got rid of the errors as well. So if we come in here, then it grabs the people. All right, let's see if the new record comes up. Oh, and we're not getting the instructor's screen. We'll make sure I rename that. Sometimes it takes a while to update. Yeah, it does. It takes a little bit of time, so it'll have that. Let's try adding a new one. So we'll call it Singing 101. Notice it defaults to somebody, but Rucker will say some description here. I'm going to pick a date. Say it's the 28th, 8 o'clock, and our end date is May 1st, and we'll say 4 o'clock. Notice it gets on the 24-hour time, and I'm just going to say Zoom for our location. And then I'll put our capacity in as 5. Oh, and then I don't need this content type, so I'll get rid of that. There we go. And then notice how it updated things. So far so good. Go edit this form here. Oh, that's the container. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to find the form, so you do it on the left side here. And let's get rid of the contact. Oh, I see. It put the contact type in there, or content type, but it didn't put in the course ID, which I kind of like to put in, so I'll add that. Or the ID in this case. All right. So if I scroll down, I can see the ID there. All right, well, not quite halfway there, but we're halfway there on screens. So let's go ahead and make another copy of this. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and copy because our instructor's screen is the closest for the attendees screen. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate screen, and I'll pause for a second. All right, so it made it there. I'm going to move this down. Just so they're in order. Go ahead and call this one the attendee screen. And kind of like we did before, we're going to just mess with this a little bit more. So we're going to filter attendee. And this is going to be attendee last name. Like that. Here we go. And we'll have to go edit the fields. Get rid of these. Then we'll add them in the order we want. So I want to have the last name, then the first name, then the organization, and then the rest of them don't really matter. So I'll put the email and the ID. There we go. Let's see what that. Oh yeah, same remove. This will be attendee. Excellent. And this one's probably the current item. Yeah, so we'll mess with that. I'm going to change the source to be attendee here. It'll replace the cards. And this one, we don't have anything special inside of there that we want to do. But let's see if it's got everything we want. It's like it's giving me the content type, so I'll get rid of that. So first name, last name, email, organization, phone. So we'll just remove this one, and we'll add in the ID like that. So nothing too special there. And I want it to still be associated courses, but this is the courses that they signed up for. So there can be multiple ones of those. So this one's a little bit more involved on what we want to do, because we actually need more columns. We gotta filter our course sign up, but we need additional columns. But luckily, Power Apps has the an add columns function. But let's get the base what we want. So we're going to do the course sign up, because that's the one that has what we put in. And we're going to say attendee ID dot value. Again, remember, we want to use value rather than ID, because if we don't want to have any kind of problem with delegation. So I'm going to come over here, and I need to grab what the ID is. So that's data card value 21. See it over there? So let's go back over here. That. So that'll actually give us the right things that we want, but it only has, that would just give us one column. It would tell us the ID number of that. So what we want to do is we're going to come in here and add columns. So it basically adds it to the table. So the first one is the table, and we can name it. So we say as CS. So that's our first table, and that's where you see. See what it says source and then column. So we're going to just add all the stuff we want. So we want course name. Notice it's not, some of the documentation shows this in quotes, but it doesn't work that way. So how do we, so that's the name, and then we need the value. So we're going to be, all these are pretty much going to be the same. Is we're going to look up from the course table, and how we're going to look it up is ID equals CS. That's why I named it dot ID. So that whole thing is a record, and then we need to grab what we want out of that, which is course name. So let me copy that into the clipboard because we're going to do that over and over. So let's grab that. So I'm going to grab this lookup. I'll just grab it to there so I can put the name after it. So that's going to be course name, and then we have course description. Lookup dot course description. And then we have course start date, time. We have course end date, time. And then we have course location. And we have course capacity. And if it finds the syntax is all right, I like to do that format text. We can shows that everything was working. So let's look at the fields. So the sign up notes came from the main column, but we don't really need that. So we'll delete, we'll remove that. And it didn't pick up the course name for whatever reason. So we'll add that. Move that to the top. So we got course name, course description, course start date, course end date, course location, course capacity. All right, so let's try that out. There we go. So Joe Schmo signed up for Guitar 101, and we got the organization, and Sammy Hagar signed up for Singing 101. So let's go ahead and see if we can add an attendee, see how it works. So I'll add myself here. And let's say Platte Canyon. And here we go. Notice I didn't find anything there, but it showed me there, but I still don't have anything because I haven't signed up for any courses yet, because that's the next screen. So we will test that in a minute. All right, so far so good. You know, we are 50 minutes into it. I told you it'd be a little bit of time, but hopefully you can bounce around on the part that is there. So let's now we want to do where we're gonna pick a course in the end. So it really doesn't matter which one of these I copy, but I'm going to go ahead and just copy this one. So I'll duplicate this screen. All right, so that's done. I'm going to move that down. And we'll rename this one. We'll call it the course signups screen. Get rid of some. I need to get rid of all these things. Give us a little more room. There we go. And this is one where I was talking about where we've got a little bit more complexity. So first thing I need to do is I need to get rid of this container, so because I don't really need this one here. So let's get rid of that. Oops, not sure that did what I wanted to do. So let me undo that for a minute. Better find it on the left side. All that stuff disappearing wasn't exactly what I was expecting. All right, let's delete it this way. There we go. That was a little bit better. So what I want to do is I don't want this table anymore. And again, the reason is because I need to do some more logic inside here to look it up. So I'm just going to delete that. And what I'm going to do is instead is now I'm going to add a gallery. And I want a vertical gallery. And what I want that to be is the course sign up screen. And then I want that to be title, subtitle, and body, just to give me some stuff to work with. There we go, and I want this fit the width there. And then what I need to do is work with these elements. Okay, so what I don't want that, but I want each of this. Doesn't do me any good to show the course ID, which is all I have in the course sign up table. I need to show the name of the course. So I say lookup course ID equals. And then this is where it gets a little tricky, but we'll build that in. So first I say this item dot course ID. Remember, that's a lookup column dot value. And if I do that, then it doesn't find it. It says expected text value. And so what I want to do is I can go either direction, but I want this to be a number. So I'm going to say value that way. Okay. And it says it's a type record, so we're getting close, even though I have this squiggly, and I need this to be course name. Here we go. And if you see, if I'm running that, see, I've got guitar 101, drumming 101. So I'm on the right track now. Still a few more errors. So I'm going to do a similar kind of thing. So actually, let me copy that from the, whoops. Make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So I'm just going to copy that part. Oops. Make that a little bit bigger. A little trouble selecting the right one I want. There we go. And this one I want to show the course date, but this one it's not going to be as obvious. So I'll say course date space ampersand to concatenate. Then I'm going to do that same lookup dot course start date time. So that gives me the date it starts. And then similarly, I want to show the attendee here. So I'll say attendee. And I'll just change this. So this is attendee instead of course. This will be attendee ID dot value. And this will be first name. Oops. That's not what I want. Oh, attendee first name, right. And we need to copy all that because I want the rest of that. So I'll say, put a space and attendee last name. There we go. So far, so good. And then notice my search box actually moved down. So that wasn't totally what I want. So let's rename this gallery first so that we can, where'd it go? Oops. Oh, there it was. So I'm going to call that course sign up gallery. And what we can do is just move, so we kind of see, we'll just move this to the end. There we go. Let's see what the other errors are. Yeah, so we were using all this first selected item business, so we can use that course sign up gallery dot selected instead. And then current item, we'll get back, that'll fix it. But one thing we should do is we didn't really spend much time on the other ones, but now we have to kind of fix this. Let's go over to another one. Let's see what was happening on select, because they kind of built that for us. So we're going to need this because we were trying to do the same thing on the gallery. So we'll find that. Where'd my gallery go? Oh, there it is. These are context value variables. So this will be course sign up gallery dot selected. There we go. And again, context just stays for the screen that it's on rather than through the whole application. So that's what's going on there. Let's see what other errors we've got so far. Current item will get taken care of. Having a little trouble seeing the other errors. There we go. Whoops. It's because I'm getting this little pop-up deal. Yeah, so everywhere we see this, we'll just say course sign up gallery. I lost the end of that, but I can put it back. There we go. And that same deleted bit, this will be course sign up. Yeah, that current item. Another one of these that had, so this whole thing gets replaced by course sign up gallery dot selected. All right, so let's go over to the table then. This will be course sign up. Going to replace the data cards. I got a whole bunch of errors for whatever reason, but we'll sort that out shortly. There we go. Let's go look at it. So we want course. So actually, let me just remove these so I can put them in the right order so I get the tab order right. There we go. And what we want is we want to go course first, which will be course ID, and then I want sign up date. And then I want sign up notes, and then I want attendee. And I want the overall ID just so I can see it. And then the sign-up notes should be multi-select, so we're going to need that. There we go, I had a little issue there. So we'll change this to multi-line. The rest of these should be okay. All right, so much like we had to do in the other one, let's first fix our screens there. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Should need this for a little bit. Oh, actually I will need it so I can unlock it, but that's okay. Let's come over here and we'll unlock it. So this will be course. And then we won't be using that same items here, but we're gonna, whoops, let's pick the card. Gonna insert drop down. And it'll be on course. And I'm going to call this, just do it here, course canvas, like that. Let's see if I can remember the thing. I think this was 32 and 36 and 411, but let's see if I got that right. Let me scroll down here. Oh, it's 24 and 36. Oops. There we go. Get rid of this data card value. And very much like we did before, let me copy this over because it's getting a little bit getting a little bit long. So that'll be that course canvas, again, the ID and the value. And this will be course canvas. There we go. And then we need the items is right already, but we need the default selected items. So we'll copy that over. So again, we're going to look it up and we're going to grab the value of the current item, course ID value. And then we're going to do the same thing over here on attendees. We're going to unlock. Change that and call it attendee. And we'll insert a drop down. Come back to that. Let's do the update. Oops. It doesn't know what that is yet, so let's go rename that. So the data source is going to be attendee. Call this attendee canvas. Here we go. (24 and 36), 411. Get rid of that data card value. Oops, canvas I want. There we go. Let's check and see if the fields are right. Now we want to put the last name first and get rid of this content type. We should go check course as well because I didn't check that. Yeah, we do have course name first. I don't know why. I guess the rest of that really doesn't matter, so that should be good. All right, let's test this part before we go any further. Let's see if it's, there we go. So it's not showing the ID right yet. So I must have not done something right there. Let's go back and look at that. Default. Yep, that's right. Let's see. Oh, I may not have set the default selected items yet. I didn't do that, did I? Yeah, there we go. So same kind of lookup we've been doing before. Oh, not sure what that all was. I was trying to copy something else, so let's do it again. There we go. So look up the items. Now it's working. So it should show Hagar. Now if I come in and edit it, should get the different choices, so forth. Okay, so far so good. Unfortunately, we're not done yet because there's quite a bit of other complexity on this screen. So let me get rid of that for a minute. So what we need to do now is make sure that we work with this capacity. So two things that we want to do. So actually, I guess I will need this. Come back a little bit. Let me do that. I'll zoom this out a little bit. There we go. So what we're going to need, let's find this container here. So I'm going to add some stuff in here. So we'll actually do that first. So let's add, I want to show the number of attendees and the slots available. And we're going to need some more containers. So I'm going to add a horizontal container here. And I'll call that the number of attendees container. And let's move that to the start because we want the buttons to go on the left. Yeah, and then I'm going to add one more. So click here again, insert container. And that's the slots available container. Again, this one, let's move left. Oops. So I need to move left again. There we go. All right, let's look at number of attendees first. So we're going to put in text. And this first one just says number of attendees. Like that. And I want to make that width, make it like 150. And then I want to add another one. And with that, I wanted to, and this one I want to give it a particular name because we're going to use that later. So we'll call it number of attendees box. So what are we going to do with that? Well, gets a little complicated as if it hasn't already, because what I really like to do is I'd like to filter on this. Let me show you what I'd like to do. So you see why we don't do it. So I'd like to come up here and I'd like to say, I'd like to filter because I wanted text, yeah. So that's the table. But what I'd like to do is that gives me all the rows because I'm trying to look up there and see how many people have already signed up for the course. So I need to filter that for how many people have signed up on there. And so what I want to do is do count rows. And you can see, if you look closely, it gives me 1, which is correct, but I get this delegation error. So the minute I get more than 500, or if I change it to 2,000, but eventually I'm going to run out. And like when I first did a version of this, it was at the Air Force Academy. We had like 10,000 people there, so we couldn't, this isn't going to cut it. So did a lot of research. It's really not an easy way, but the best I came up with was to use a gallery for this. So that's what I'll do. So we'll just kind of play that. So I'm going to do a vertical gallery. And we're really going to just hide it. So we're not really, that's why I'm putting it inside this container here. So I'm just going to leave that alone for now, but I'm going to change the type of this to blank, and I'm going to change its height to 20 and its width to 20. And then I'll eventually change it to visible as well. But what I want to do here is that filter I want to put in there for what its items value is. And then what that'll allow me to do, going back to this text, so let me rename this so it's a little bit clearer. So I'm going to call this the attendee lookup gallery. There, and then I go back to the number of attendees box, and what I want to have there is I can just use that gallery. So I can say attendees attendee lookup. It's got an all items count. It doesn't have the validation error or the relegation. You see it's 1. It's a little small there on the screen. So let's go ahead and set the visible to this thing to false. So it's out of the way. There we go. So let's see what it does. And see I've got these shadows and stuff all fixed too. But notice as I come through, looks like, oh yeah, so there's number of attendees that's already there is 2. So we've got some good information there. And so let's do our second one. Oh, actually, let me mess with these containers while I'm thinking of it. So what you want to do, those are the drop shadows is what's showing on. So I got the button container. That one was all right, but then inside here I don't want any kind of drop shadow there, and I don't want a drop shadow here either. All right, so let's do the slots available. So same kind of thing. So we're going to do, this is slots available. Then I'll insert another text. Oops, guess I didn't take. And I'll call that the slots available box. And I want that to be bold. And so this one's a little bit involved as well, but it's not terrible. Let me go look at my notes there for a minute. So what I want to do is a little bit of math here. Oops. Let me save. I'm going to save for a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to look up the total capacity. So I'm going to look up in course ID equals, remember that course canvas dot selected dot ID and then I'm going to grab the course capacity. So that's a number minus, and then I need to do the value because it comes across as text, but I had the number of attendees box dot text. So you can see it says 0 right now. So that's kind of cool. And then while I'm here, I want that to be red when it runs out. And I actually can do a whole bit of logic. So I actually want it to be green when it's, and then when it's orange when it's low, green when it's got good availability, that kind of thing, like you're signing up for movie tickets or whatever. So I've got the font color, and it gets kind of long, so I'll just copy it in so you don't have to watch me type it, but it's basically just does the math. So let me copy that. So we look up the capacity. So we basically do that math each time. And if it's less than or equal to 0, it's red. Then we check again. And then we divide it by the capacity. And if that's greater or less than 20%, 0.2, then we make it orange. Otherwise, we make it green. So that gives us a little bit of kind of coolness. You can see it's red if you look closely on the screen there right now. So you'd think we were about done, but we actually have a little bit more because we have to put some messages up for the users, but also we have some, we don't want these messages to be there all the time. So we've got some visible. So that's why I put that in a container actually, so we could set it all up over and over. So let me just copy the visible in there and then I'll explain it because, yeah, we're coming up on an hour and a half probably. Hopefully you paused and taken a break here. Oh, and you see it when on my sample I rename this form. So why don't I'll do that. So I'll call this the course sign up form. So stuff gets clear. Yeah, so let me go back to the container. So what we've got, so first of all, if it's not the course sign up form, if it's not new, or if we have a selected item, so in this one varied a little bit. In the SQL Server one, you might have noticed that we actually set some variables to kind of make, because it didn't default to a value. When we're linking it to SharePoint, it actually defaults to the first one in the list. So these are actually always true. So basically this happens all the time, except it shows all the time. But if it happened to not get a selection, then it wouldn't show up. So that's what's going on there. And then let's do slots available, which is the same. So we're basically showing those at the same time. All right. Now we think we were done, but we're actually not quite because we do want to show some messages as well. So I'm going to come back, kind of collapse these controls here. So I've got these two containers, but I want to put one more container in there. I want to have a message container, and I want to kind of show up at the bottom of this form, but I don't want to put it inside the form. So I'm going to come in here and click here, insert container, another vertical container. I'm going to call this the message container. I'm going to move it up. There we go. And I don't need it to be very big, so I'm going to use that fill portions, just do like 0.3. And then all I really need to do inside of there, actually I need two of them. I need two labels and another one of those galleries. So let's do the labels first. And I'm going to set that to do the whole width. There we go. And this one's going to be there are no slots available. Please try another course. Because what we're trying to do is, if there's not any seats, then we don't let them sign up for it. And we're going to make this bold and make the font color red, kind of a version of red there. And so all the interesting parts then is on the visible. So it's kind of similar to what we just did, but I'll paste it in and won't spend tons of time on it because we're running pretty long here. Oops. Going to get rid of the true. So the most important is we only want to show that when the slots available text is less than or equal to 0. But then we also look at if it's a new form and so forth, and we just, again, doing some logic to make sure that there is an attendee, and also we get some weirdness that we don't want it to show up when the person's already registered. So we're only looking at when it's a different attendee than what was already selected. So we'll play with that for a minute, but that's what's going on there. And you see right now we don't have that situation, so it's actually hidden right this moment. But we will do that, and I want to call that no capacity box, because we'll use that later. There we go. So I'm just going to, let me just copy that. I'm going to rename this one, call it already registered box. This attendee is already registered for the course. I'm going to set the visible to true right now so we can see it. and I want this to be kind of more of a blue there. All right. And then let's look at our visible. Yeah, so this one we're going to, actually I won't put the visible in yet because we need to have another one of those galleries for the same reason that we did it before, so that we don't have the delegation issue. So let's put in the vertical gallery. There we go, and we'll name this, just close that. Make this none. So let's make it 20 by 20. Here we go. And this one I'll name Course Attendee Lookup Gallery. And the items is another one of those filters. So let's go look at it. So we're going to filter the course sign up, and we're looking for when the course is the selected course and the attendee is the selected attendee. So we're just trying to find out if this attendee is already signed up for this course, because we don't want to let them do it twice. So if they've already signed up, that'll be 1. If they haven't signed up, it'll have 0 count. So let's go back to the visible then. So let's click on the already registered box, and I'll copy and paste that in there. So this first part that's in either edit or that it's got a selected, course and attendee turns out to always be true. So that part's all right. But then we're looking if, most importantly, if the course attendee lookup gallery, that one we just set up, if it's all items is greater than 0, which basically saying that the person's already signed up there. So let's go ahead and try it out, and let's see how it's working so far. So we'll go back to the, we got to fix, looks like our back button got out of sync a little bit, so let's fix that real quick. Here we go, we can move that to the, move it to the start. Here we go. Oh, we haven't set up the rest of our buttons, so let's try that out. Let's see, we just did the first one. So we'll say navigate. That'll be the courses screen. Navigate attendees screen. Navigate the course sign up. Screen. There we go. All right, let's try that. All right, so we want, so we don't quite have Oh, it flashed for a second. There we go. So we've got our sign up. So it's a little bit slow here, but okay, we've got 2 slots available on the drumming. Should also show 2 shots available there. Getting a little bit of a flash, and then on the guitar, it's like it's taking a minute, so I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second. Looks like I probably need to refresh for a second, but that's about what it's right. So it's got slots available in red there as 0, and then we come in. So let's go ahead and try on a new one, so maybe we're okay. So that's what I was talking about on the SharePoint one. It defaults to the first one. So guitar and Schmo, the attendee has already registered, and there are no available slots. So if I change to somebody else, then it should go away that I didn't register, but there's still no slots available. Notice the submit button's still enabled, so that'll be the last thing that we're going to do in a second. But the showing and hiding, since we're going to use the showing and hiding of these, we got to make sure they're right. So same thing if I come over to somebody else, now it says if the person's registered, and if I go to Hagar, it goes away. So that's all good. And then if I change to a different one, those messages should go away, except the drumming 101 and Hagar has already registered. So that's what we expect. Same should be for Schmo. They've already registered. And then if I change to myself, that should work fine. So let me, now I didn't default to today's date. Notice this should have on a new one done that date. So let's go ahead and fix that, and we'll do a little more testing. So a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and pick the default over there. And what we want to do is, let's go look at the default. And it says this item sign up date. But what we want to do is look at the form mode. So if we say if, I need to unlock that. And then say if, and I'll just use the name of the form, sign up form dot mode equals form mode dot new. Then what we want to do is use the current date and time. Now notice we got the now function in the today, but today is just the date. So that would be like 12 a.m. Then we want this to be the time as well. So we'll say this item sign up date. So that way, if it's a brand new record, it should default to there. But if it's an edited one, then it will use the existing sign up date. So let's go ahead and fix while we're editing. Let's look at the submit button, because that's the last thing. So what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and change the display mode, because we don't want them, if they're in if they're not supposed to save and they're getting those messages, then we don't want to be able to save it. So what we want to do, rather than repeat all that logic, we can just look at the visible of those text boxes. So if I say if no capacity box dot visible or already registered box dot visible, then we want to do display mode dot disabled. Else, which means both of them are hidden, which means we're okay, we want to do display mode dot edit, which is what it was before. There we go. All right, let's save. And let's test both of those out. So first thing, I'm going to cancel out of this. Actually, let's just go out of the screen, just make sure we're good. All right, so I'm going to do new. And you see, once it kind of caught up, it's a little slow right now, it disabled the submit. But if I change this to, oh, let's do a new one, Singing 101, which took a second. It's got 5 slots. It defaulted to the current date and time. So I'm going to say some test notes here, and I'm going to submit. Let's see if it saves everything correctly for us. And it did. And then I can click around and so forth. All right, well, this was a marathon, certainly my longest video so far on this channel. I hope it was helpful. Send me some comments. If you'd like to see more, I'll do a shorter video next time, and we'll do just an app for users to sign up for themselves, so we don't need all this logic, or at least not all of it. So look forward to seeing you next time, and thanks for hanging in there.